humanity has been in an abusive relationship with a narcissistic deep state, and nobody can take us out of it. We need to just wake up ourselves. And sometimes when you're in an abusive relationship with a partner, whatever it is, whatever level, you need, if you don't realize and you don't have the courage to get out, you need to take hits until you say you're fed up and you just go, that's enough now, enough, and you just stop consenting to be abused and you move on, and you take away, actually, you don't need to kill your abuser. You need just to take the power away from them. That's all you need to do. Stop feeding them. Stop saying yes. You say bye. You ignore them. You take the power away and they just wither.
You're listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla, your source for the uncensored truth regarding the human, extraterrestrial, global, and political agenda. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel. And now, here's Dr. Michael Salla.
Well, it's my great pleasure and honor to welcome Alex Collier and Elena Danaan to Exopolitics Today. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. It's always an honor and a privilege to be in the presence of two such great beings.
Well, you're so humble, Alex, given your 30 years of history in this. I feel very humble just being in the same Q&A with you. So I do have a bunch of questions for you both, and I thought it'd be good to start off with these fleets of extraterrestrials that arrived in our solar system last year. And both of you have talked about them, and you've talked about them being here to kind of watch a transition, to watch this kind of handover of power. So what's the latest information you have about these fleets, and what are they doing?
Your Grace, why don't you go first?
Well, they are meeting, well, this fleet who arrived, I was told, in October 2021, behind Jupiter. I suppose they arrived through the portal there, the Stargate. They're still stationed there. That's huge fleet of ships. They are from the Intergalactic Confederation, because if they went to the trouble to come here, which is not trouble for them, but it's also because they are taking part of it by preparing, helping humanity of Earth to prepare for the future. The Galactic Federation of Worlds and other groups of the Alliance have done a big job in the star system, but now the Intergalactic Confederation is meeting different delegations from Earth, from Mars, I've seen that, to just set up what's coming. So they're still working on that, and on the disclosure as well of their presence by showing up their ships more and more. And there's also the Arks that have activated, but that's another topic we can talk about later. That's what I know.
Thank you. Alex, do you have kind of anything to add to that, given the Andromeda Council's long history in observing events in our solar system?
Well, there have been a lot of fleets coming and going, so it isn't like they just showed up. I mean, there's been an extraordinary amount of traffic coming and going, but a semi-permanent presence, that's relatively new. Now, you have to remember that our fifth dimensional brothers and sisters, they come from the future. So they're looking for a very specific process of growth and evolution in order to make their future happen. Now, when they come back here in the past, they're looking from fifth dimension, and what we're looking at is like, it's almost like a puzzle in a Rubik's Cube. Everything has to line up to a specific way in order for a frequency or energy to lock in place. So it's almost like a combination lock, all right? Everything has to turn, all the numbers, all the frequencies, all the events have to line up in a specific way so that the future locks in place. Just to add to what Elena just said, they're here to make sure that all the frequencies and all the events line up the way they're supposed to, so that the evolution of third dimensional humanity proceeds the way it's supposed to, so that in their future, everyth's copacetic. Okay, there's no more insanity. There's no more well, there's just no more insanity. I don't know how to say it any better than that. And you know that's just not literally the human race. When we shift our frequency, it changes other races and other species as well. It's the pebble in the pond. You know, it's nice and calm. You drop the pebble in the right place, the frequency, the wave goes out everywhere. That's exactly what's happening. And for, you know, some reason, and you know, maybe it has to do with all the star seeds that are here. You know, there's well over 200 million star seeds on the planet. So many different star nations have a very serious invested interest in the outcome of this drama that's being played out here. Not to mention the fact that the Orion group has been a major pain in the ass for a very, very long time in this galaxy. You know, and for everyone to be able to get that off the table and close those files would be huge, you know, because they have all had to vest resources dealing with these beings who simply don't know how to create their own reality. They have to screw up everybody else's.
So I know both of you have talked about the negative ET groups and that they are kind of like on the run, that their power base in our solar system has kind of more or less collapsed and that they are leaving or have left already. Now, but both of you have also mentioned that a key part of the presence of these high dimensionals or the galactics, the intergalactic confederation, is to ensure that the white hats follow through on their obligations. So I just wanted both of you to just kind of elaborate on why it's important for these higher density ETs that are here to watch and ensure that all the frequencies line up, as Alex was saying, follow through on their commitments. Yep, Alex.
Can I go first? Okay. You know, the appropriate way to describe the alliance and the federation is, you know, is probably just the one word: guardians. You know, maybe that's the best way to describe their very specific role here is guardians. They're acting as guardians. Now, as far as making sure that the white hats follow through, they understand that they understand power in a way that we're still learning as a species. Now, you know, the road to hell is paved with best intentions. You can go too far in the process of learning power. Now, yes, the white hats forever have watched the abuse of power. They have watched it. They have done everything they could to curtail it. But here, the pendulum is swinging, and it's swinging towards the light, for lack of a better word. Now, will there be responsibility in that exercise of power? Because now it's not literally, it's not swinging into the center. It's swinging all the way into the light. And some of these people or beings that are here that we call white hats, they've also been dark hats. They have realigned their presence, their frequency, and their purpose. As any parent, you want to make sure, or guardian or mentor, you want to be sure that the follow-through is consistent with real ethical morality. Not only on a human level, but on a spiritual level as well. In other words, there just aren't, I see it in my head perfectly, but there are just no words sometimes to explain That's all I got at the moment.
Okay, well, maybe Elena, you can elaborate on that particular issue. I know that's been part of some of the things you've been saying about the Jupiter Accords and the white hats having a lot of expectations on them, doing the right thing. So if you elaborate.
Thank you, Michael. Well, maybe the concept I feel Alex tried to explain is that it's not happening only on a third dimensional level with political and social connection and agreements with people. It has repercussions simultaneously in different realms of existence and densities. So whatever action the white hats, for instance, do in their third dimensional plane, this plane where the agreements are made, the upper level of these agreements in higher dimension of consciousness, it follows. So it's all about trust. It's all about trust. All these white hats we're talking about, they are human beings like all of us, and they've learned. They made mistake. That's why they learn, how they learned, most of them. And so now they've reached this status where they're aware and willing to step forward into the future. So these agreements have been made with the Federation and other councils, galactic councils, that had been set on Jupiter last July. Well, we know about that, but then they need to respect it. It's an oath of honor as well, on a soul level, that if they fail, it's it's difficult to find words on it. That's like,
yes. I think what she's trying to say is that their intention and their purpose has to be resolute.
Yes.
They have to follow through, and they have to abide by that. They can't at some point in the future say, well, we're going to change this because we feel this way. That is not how this works on a galactic level.
No.
Okay?
No.
Because we have a symbiotic relationship. We have starseed. We have multidimensional life here. It changes everything. And when I said, the locking in of frequencies, it's about everyone moving the same way, okay, in the same direction simultaneously. That's what it's about. We
exactly.
can't decide, okay, hey, we're going off-road now. We've been off-road, for 8,000 years, and look at the havoc it's wreaked. It's taken a third of the galaxy to come here and straighten it out.
Yeah, and it's catching a train, if I can use this metaphor. The train is shifting into higher density because the third density is collapsing. So catching this train is becoming on this frequency, shifting on this frequency, becoming someone honest and, in tune, in resonance with this new vibration we're entering to. I was shown that the Earth is entering into this higher frequency in this area in the galaxy, and that we need to follow, So that's this as well, if I may say.
Okay. I want to know a little more about the guardians or the seeders in terms of what they've done historically on the planet. And I know in the Council of Nine material, they talked about the 24 civilizations. You mentioned 24, and that they go back far into our history, and that at different points in time they've seeded different civilizations. So, for example, Atlantis was seeded by the Alteans, according to the Council of Nine material that Phyllis Schlemmer channeled 30 years ago, 40 years ago actually. That the Hoovers created the Hebrew nation and so forth. So, what do you know about the guardians or the seeders and their relationship with these ancient civilizations, many of which are long gone, but some of which are still playing a big role in human affairs?
I think Alex has a lot of knowledge about that. My humble knowledge is that they left colonies, they settled colonies a very long time ago, and they left here technology hidden a little bit everywhere as a time capsule for future times, which are actually now. We are at the other end of the bridge. They seeded a few genomes here, but it's not one race. It's different species and races among them. So, but I know Alex has more informations about that.
Well, you're the expert on the councils. But when you refer to the seeders, are you referring to the Batal?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
I've never read any of the Council of Nine or any of that. That's never been a huge interest for me. And it's not to invalidate it in any way. That's not my point. It's just, I've had a lot of life going on at the same time. So I just never had the time to focus on it. But if we're referring to the Batal and the Cedars being the same, my understanding is that they were able to scale into dimensions that were already created by Source, and they created physicality. Before you can seed any life, you have to create the space for life. That's what they were doing. They created the physical places where life could be seeded. And understand that when you have a piece of DNA or genome, what it will look like and the shape it will take form of in fifth density will be very different than that in third density. Okay? Even though you're dealing with the same sample, because of the resonance, the frequency, and the bands of light, you are going to have a different outcome. There will definitely be similarities, but they can be, at the same time, extremely different because the DNA in the genome has to adapt to the frequencies that it's living in or that it's forming itself. It will also express the intent of the spiritual consciousness that's there. So it's whoever God is, she's quite complicated. She's quite complicated. And I mean that sincerely. She's quite complicated. there's a great deal of depth there that none of us can fathom still. And I can speak for the Yays on Fifth. They're still trying to fathom how complicated she is.
Yes.
So when we're talking about the Cedars, the Guardians, and how they've been involved in human history dating back many, many millennia, and that they kind of left behind technology, or maybe the civilizations that they supported left behind technology. And so, you know, this technology, is that kind of like the same thing as these arcs that we find becoming active? I mean, are these kind of like, I know people have talked about the Sphinx having a chamber underneath it of technology. And I remember some people have talked about the Sphinx having some kind of 4D, 5D spacecraft in there with all this incredible technology. Is that what we're talking about? That these ancient civilizations, when their day came for them to pass from the scene, that either they or the ETs they work with left behind these technologies or spacecraft filled with these advanced technologies for a day when humanity would be ready again for this advanced tech? Again, either one of you.
I'll give you, okay, that's an excellent question. That's an excellent question. Now, you mentioned the Sphinx. Well, you know, Thoth, the brother of Marduk, is the one who's responsible for putting a lot of that there and coding it for a specific time to open. Many of these extraterrestrial civilizations that pass through here and have left technology behind, it is my understanding that not all of them had intended for it to be used by future civilizations to come after them. A lot of the time what happened was they were constantly evolving. And as they were evolving, so was the technology. A lot of the technology that is advanced to us was their throwaway stuff. They didn't need it. They couldn't use it where they were going, or it simply was baggage and they simply decided they didn't need to bring it with them, so they left it here. Now, we're not, you know, we're talking about advanced, multidimensional, tachyon, quantum technology. We're not talking about a Ford where its planned obsolescence is 9 years. For example, in the rings of Saturn, there are ships, mining ships, that are 10,000 miles long. And they still have robotic crews, android crews, servicing it and working it. It's still operational, even though there's no one doing any mining. It's still on. It still works. They don't build anything to break down because you're in space. You know, you don't build anything to break down. You build it to run forever or until you take it somewhere and you break it down. So, you know, and we're also talking about advanced energy propulsion systems. So there's, you know, it's not like they have to pull up to a filling station and say, hey, you know, fill her up. The universe is full of energy, and they knew how to tap into it. And the equipment does exactly the same thing. It knows how to tap into it because the ships are organic. They're alive. They were built to be living organisms, okay? So that's what we're finding out. That's what we're discovering, is that civilizations that may have been 1 million years through this part of our galaxy, for whatever reason, they left things behind. They decided they didn't need to take it with them, so it's left behind. And, you know, this is not new to the A's, to the Pleiadians, to those in Cygnus, those in Arcturus. Cirrus A, B, this is not new. They've run across this stuff all over the galaxy and other galaxies. Equipment that was just left behind, that's still operational. Now, can we get into it? Do we have the genetic coding to actually get inside and use this technology? That's a whole nother question and a whole nother conversation, because we don't know how this equipment was locked. Because if this equipment fell into the wrong hands and was used for totally nefarious reasons, that reflects back on the creators of that technology. So these things may be turning on, but can we use it? Can we actually get inside of them? Do we have access to their capabilities? These are the questions that I would be asking. And Space Force, the A's, the P's, and whoever else is part of the Jupiter Accords and the other 24 council races, those are the questions that we have to be asking them. Because it could be some of that equipment belongs to their ancestors, their forefathers and foremothers. You know, it's difficult to know, Michael. You know, consciousness is unlimited, and so can technology. So can the ability of technology be unlimited.
Yeah, well, we will come back to that question because one of my sources, JP, actually has had concrete experiences with that. But I just want to give Elena the opportunity to maybe comment a little bit about this ancient technology that's been left behind and the Sphinx and this so-called hall of records and the craft underneath there.
Thank you, Michael. Well, these technologies, it's not really ships, you can call them arks. It's alive. They are allotted with consciousness, and they are existing simultaneously in different densities. This is due to the composition of their physicality, which is made with crystal. It's crystal materials, and such is their ships, the ships of the Intergalactic Confederation or the Guardians. They're made with crystal. I went in one of them, and the first thing that shocked me, because I never seen that before, the architecture was organic, and the ships were feeling like alive, like conscious. And when you go inside it, there are crystals everywhere. It's clusters, not walls like there was made with crystals. Crystalline structures and clusters, and it's quite amazing. This imbued consciousness and their technology allows this technology to be alive in different density at the same time. So if you alter it, it will be altering all the other densities, and they're all linked together by a global consciousness. They are all like, that's why when they arrived, the Guardians arrived in our star system, well, this big fleet, because as Alex was saying, coming and going, by resonance, all the conscious technology that they had left everywhere in the star system awakened, resonated, suddenly were put in resonance and woke up. I believe that at the time these people were here on Earth, very long time ago, their vision was maybe to live in harmony with the humans of Earth and share a civilization of technology and peace, but a dark evil came. So things went bad and they had to go, and they left behind of course, it didn't bother them to leave these things behind because they didn't need it, but also they left this in their mind, probably for the day when they come back, it will be because the people of Earth will have gotten rid of the great evil and will be then ready to use this technology, and that's happening.